Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. All right, welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I'm excited about today's guest, Mr. Daniel Andrews, for a variety of reasons. One, he's got swords in the wall behind him, so that's cool. A man of my own taste there. Two, you wouldn't believe how hard it was for us to connect. The tech tried to keep us apart, tried more than once to keep us apart. We were determined to not let that happen. And three, your topic of genius is one of my favorite things. It's how I live my life. It's how I've grown multiple businesses. It's primary to me as far as what's most important, and that's connections and networking and relationships. So before we dive into that, why don't you give people a little formal introduction of who you are and what you do?
Sure. Daniel Andrews, which is a hard name to Google, so I'll tell, because of the number of hits that come up, I'll tell you more about that at the end, how to find me correctly, because searching for me will not work on the internet. But I live in Columbia, South Carolina. This is my hometown. Grew up here, went off to college, came back, ran a business here for 13 years, moved to St. Louis for 10 years, 3 years in Houston. Wheels came off my first marriage there. Moved back home 7.5 years ago in the fall of 2016. In the summer of 2017, I messaged a woman that I had one date with in 1984.
Love it.
On Facebook. She was living in LA, but I messaged her, and 2 years later we got married. So we're married
Awesome.
5 years now. Yeah, been married 5 years now to
Nice.
one date with. Yeah. People say, what about your first date? I'm like, my first date or my second first date? There's no such thing. I'm like, yeah, there is such a thing as a second first date. And she's the light of my life. So that's why I focus on that. Professionally, this is career number 4. My first half of my career was in business to consumer sales, literally direct sales, literally kitchen table, both coaching and executing, and learned a lot of tools that served me in other capacities, learned some things I had to unlearn that don't work in a B2B setting, or at least not in the same quite capacity. I had to go back to the principle behind it, which is the principle is always universal. The technique may vary from environment to environment. And struggle, right? He gave me the recognition of saying his particular genius is around connection. But I would then posit the story, supposedly, of Itzhak Perlman walking home from the rehearsal hall one day and stopped by a random tourist in New York who said, "Excuse me, sir, can you tell me how to get to Carnegie Hall?" And he said, "Practice," right? And he claimed he wasn't a genius. He was a drudge. He just refused not to work at it. People that knew me in my first career in this town moved away, came back, and they're like, wait a minute, Dan's teaching relationship skills? That was not my genius in the 90s. And I think the best person to coach around stuff like this typically is somebody that's had to get good at it. Because if it comes to you naturally, that's great. It's a gift. You should take advantage of it.
But it's hard to teach other people how to do it because you don't know how to do it. You just do it.
I know the difference between where I was and where I am. Right? I know the difference. And again, I think I learned some early skills, but I didn't understand the principle behind them until I experienced other things. And I don't know if we have time for the origin story, right? And some people put it, but I can definitely paint the picture of the moment where I went, oh, building a network is very different than networking.
It's so different. It's so different, right? I had somebody say, networking is just, right, that's just going out and meeting people. Your network, who will respond to you when you reach out?
Yeah.
Right. It's not your followers. Your followers aren't your network. Your followers are people who click a button and see your face. Your email list is not your network. They're a little bit closer, right? They're a little closer than your followers. They've at least exchanged their email for one reason or another. But your network, the way that I describe it, is who will actually respond to me if I reach out.
Yeah, Suzanne Taylor King said, just because you're in their phone doesn't mean they will answer their phone. And even LinkedIn doesn't call them your network. They call them your connections. Your phone calls it your contacts. And I think network implies two things. From one, it implies an elevated degree of connectivity, but it also implies the people that they're connected to. Yeah. Because if it's not actually a network, then it's just your closer friends or closer professional contacts, right? Meaning it doesn't need to be called a network. The word network implies that you have enough credibility with those people to get introduced to the people they have credibility with. And people lose sight of what's accessible. This was very fascinating. And you'll see why I say that in a minute, but for several months ago, it occurred to me, like 6 or 7 months ago, that if we could see who the other people know, as we talk to the Aaron Marcuses and the Suzanne Taylor Kings and the Mike Pfisters of the world and the Earl Flamatas and the people that are my mentors in a lot of cases, right? If we could see who they knew as we talk to them, we would engage with them a little more sincerely and a little more in depth, because we know that we can be of service to people that they know by connecting with those. And what do they call it? Augmented reality, right? I was waiting for the
holograms to be
behind your head. Okay, now get this. And I'm going to force you to talk to me to get access to this. So anybody listening can come through me. Someone else has created a tool that when you are in a Zoom networking event and you're using this tool, everybody else that's using this tool in the room, you can see the cloud. It will tell you not who's in the room, but who Aaron Marcus knows that you need to get to know, and rate them on a scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, wow.
You need to know them. And all of a sudden, there's that cloud floating behind people's heads. And I want to emphasize that I think that I will create more sincerity, not less. And what I mean by that is, if I understand that I can't be of ultimate value to Aaron, or that Aaron can't be of ultimate value to me, but I can see who she knows, I'm actually going to invest more time in getting to know Aaron and asking her to look at my cloud, my LinkedIn profile, ask her to define what connections serve her, because I'm actually going to be more sincere. Because if I'm just in the moment where I'm like, is Aaron going to buy my thing? Never, then forget this.
Right. And that is so not networking, right? That is not
prospecting is what
it's
that is.
Prospecting. And I think there's a few mistakes I watch people make. That's number one, is prospecting and not networking. And then to me, this happens in networking as well as prospecting. A mistake where people think that the way it works is I meet somebody, I say one brilliant thing and they buy my widget, or I meet somebody, I say one brilliant thing and they refer me tons of business.
That's called marketing by hand, which is
right.
It's the same concept. It's still one dimension, right?
It's still one dimension. And the really cool thing, and part of this is getting older, I can connect with someone only twice a year and feel very connected with them because of how fast time goes. I don't need to talk to you every month. I don't have time to talk to you every month. But if you and I have 2 good interactions a year and the rest of the time we're just liking and supporting each other passively, I feel connected to you.
That is correct. And people think that maintenance requires a lot of contact. And here's my point. If you've built credibility, don't screw it up. If you, I can reach out to people that I haven't talked to in 5 and 10 years, and people do it to me as well. And they ask me for a resource and introduction, and it doesn't matter that we haven't connected recently. Now, if all they did was randomly text me, lead this, referral that, prospect, and there wasn't any mutuality, it would probably deteriorate, right? So some people think you have to be in touch with folks all the time. And the reality is your network is not necessarily people that you're in consistent contact with. It's just people that will answer your call. And in my case, that can go back as much as 20 and 30 years.
Right. I just had this happen to me. There was a gentleman, I believe we traded podcasts 2 years ago. We hit it off. We had so much fun getting to know each other. We knew eventually we wanted to do something together. Passively over the last 2 years, commenting, oh my God, you showed up in my feed, literally nothing more than that. And it finally connected where I sent something out. He goes, that's how we can work together. We've already talked about it. It's not that hard.
Now, the reverse mistake that I think some people make is some reluctance to engage with people consistently to ask for prospects, which is fine if you are consistently supporting them, right? Meaning it's really weird to me, the dichotomy. People say, I love giving referrals, I love connecting people, but it's awkward for me to ask. I'm like, wait a minute, you love it, but you're going to rob someone else of the chance to feel that same joy in supporting you. And so the converse of, oh my God, I can't maintain that many relationships. Yeah, you can, because you need to not screw them up. That's how you maintain most of them. But then this woman was just asking me the other day, I was on a call, the context isn't important, but I was speaking to about 100 people via Zoom. And she said, how often do you go back to the same person and ask for another referral? I said, let's go back to my definition, which was key referral partnership. I said, are you providing something for them?
Right.
Yes. If on the average, every time you meet, you provide them with value and they provide you with value, how often would you want to meet?
You could, right?
Right. I said, now, clearly the quality of the reciprocation, like the quality of the mutuality is different in, let's say, a partnered relationship, a personal relationship. I said, but do you just check in with your spouse once a week on the principle that I wouldn't want to ask too much from you, sweetie, right?
Right.
No, I have joy in my encounters with her. She has joy in her encounters with me. And as far as the two of us are concerned, there's no such thing as too much of that, right?
Right.
Because there's neither one of us feels taken advantage of. So,
and I also think for me, I also consider not everybody is in equal situation to refer to everybody else. That's just because of what some of us do for a living, other people do for a living.
Yes.
So I do consider giving referrals. I call it the business bucket of the universe, right? It doesn't have to be linear. If I give to the business bucket of the universe, the business bucket of the universe gives to me.
Now there's, like many things, there's a fine line. Okay. And I knew this in my heart. And I recently was challenged by Suzanne Taylor King to read a particular book. The first chapter is all you really need. And I can summarize the whole first chapter for you in the next 45 seconds. But it pointed out something that I knew to be true. And when you hear it, you'll be like, okay, that actually does make sense. Okay. And number one, I do believe that most of us need to be in a position where we're giving unselfishly in many capacities. There's people that we mentor. That whole thing about the average of the 5 people I hang out with the most means somebody's bringing the average down, right? But that's okay because somebody mentored me, right? I was bringing their average down in a moment. And now do I contribute time and money to nonprofits and to charities and to people that need what I have to? I have resources that I have. Absolutely. I do believe there's a moment to, as you put it, give to the universe. Okay. Having said that, there's a clear record, 6,000 years recorded history that says there is no law of reciprocity. There is no karma in the world, right? You read Job in the ancient literature, he lived a great life and terrible things happen now. Okay, so here's the awareness. The book is Adam Grant's Give and Take. Adam Grant wrote several books, so the book Give and Take. In the first chapter, he said something that I knew in my heart to be true, and it was good to see it documented. And this is very fascinating, it's worth thinking about. And that's this. He said that you can look at people's networking styles. You always give air quotes the word networking styles and fairly clearly delineate with a little bit of observation, a few data points. Are they givers, net givers? Are they net takers? Or are they matchers, people that shoot for some degree of let's keep the score even in reciprocity? Okay, which makes sense. I don't need to get any deeper than givers, takers, matchers. That's enough for this discussion. Then he says you can look at high, medium, low levels of success over a career. You can take a 30, 40-year span and look at it. In the highest categories of success, the very highest, which do you think you find the most? Givers, takers, or matchers?
I would say the matcher people.
Givers are in the highest categories of success. In the lowest categories of success, givers, takers, or matchers?
Takers.
Givers
are in the lowest as well.
And the takers and matchers clump in the middle.
Got it.
Because you can give wrong. And
absolutely.
I can paint two really clear pictures that things that people say that will absolutely hammer this point. I'm in a community where the guy's leading and he's talking about reciprocation, which is not a word I like because it's matching and that's not a good energy. Mutuality is. And he's always be the one to give first. And I always put in the chat box, that's mathematically impossible. You can't put Daniel and Aaron in a room and go, give first. One of us is lunging at the other with duct tape going, dibs on going first, right? That's BS. So
and the other thing that I see mess this up for people is intention.
That's it. If I
it comes down to the intention.
If I show up in the heart to give, then I can receive first because I know in my heart, either in a moment or a month or a year, I'm going to give back.
Well, and also, truthfully, too many people, more women than men, too many people give because they do not feel worthy of receiving. That's a different problem.
It is.
You
It is.
can't give enough away to feel better about yourself. That's not how that works.
Correct. And the antidote to that is either a therapist, which will take you years, a coach, which should take you months, or this one simple thought. You're going to rob that person of the joy they feel in giving. I don't care how it makes you feel. You're telling me that your joy in giving trumps anybody else's right to feel joy.
Oh my God, seriously.
Like,
it's crazy.
You've got to be kidding me.
I think a lot of people suffer or complain out of martyrdom, that it's ego disguised as, right? We gotta, like the one thing I will say over and over again is the absolute hardest conversation you'll ever have is an honest conversation with yourself, right? Like, oh my God. So look at what you're doing. But I also know that if I'm in a situation where I'm giving and I'm not getting anything back, you've got to give. Let me put it this way. You've got to start, at least for me, I've got to start out giving out of neutral, without expectation.
Correct.
That doesn't mean throw good money after bad. That doesn't mean throw good time after bad, throw good resources after bad. But I've got to start from a place of neutral, because if I start from a place of expectation and I'm already keeping score, it already feels weird.
And yes, you are 100% correct. And this is my awareness around that. And it came up in one way, and I'm practicing in a different way. And I don't mind saying out loud exactly what that's going to be in terms of people connecting with me, right? And by the way, we're discussing these problems, and all I'll say this moment is I have worked out the solution. So yes, there is an answer to that. We won't have time for it today, but you will be able to find
I wish I can solve all your problems in 30 minutes, but that's not how that goes. Not how this goes.
But I work on this all day, every day. Okay. And so the awareness is it goes back to giving wrong. So I'm on someone else's live stream, and he says to me, Dan, you talk about being intentional versus haphazard or accidental. And he says, but you also talk about being relational over transactional. He said, but when you say be strategic about who you build with, doesn't that imply a degree of transactionality and not relationality? And he said, I'm not saying that it is. He said, but it landed on my ears in a way that made me wonder, and it might be true for some of my listeners. And I said, fine. I know the answer is no. I have to sort out how to articulate that, because it's the first time I've been asked that particular question. So I said, entertain the crowd for a minute. So 60 seconds later, I'm waving at the camera. I'm like, all right, I'm ready. He goes, what do you got? And I said, let me start you with a simple question. Is your message worth amplifying? And he goes, yeah. I said, let me phrase it differently. Do you do good in the world? He goes, yeah. I said, because if you didn't feel like you did good in the world, you'd either do something different or you do it, but you do it differently. And he goes, I said, okay, so your message is worth amplifying. Do other people have a message that's worth amplifying? And he's, yeah. I said, okay, great. Let's hold on to that. You're going to spend this much time on the planet alive, this much time on the planet awake, this much time on the planet at work, and this much time on the planet dealing with other people. If that's the case, don't you owe it to your message? And by that, I mean to the people that you hope to serve. Because our calling is not what we do. It's what happens in other people when we do what we do. Don't you owe it to your message? Don't you owe it to the people that you hope to serve to hang out with people who are positioned to amplify your message and you're positioned to amplify their message? Because we've only got so much time to put into it. It's not that Erin never gave to me, so I need to pull back. It's that I owe it to Erin to put her somewhere where she can provide mutual support, where she can give and get, because there's only so much time on this planet, and I'm in disservice to her to keep her captured to me. And here's what's also interesting. Anybody with any degree of character, not everybody has it, but most people do, will pull away from you if you overgive. My grown daughter argues with me over who's paying for dinner.
Yes.
And I'm like, ma'am, it's your inheritance. It's all coming out of the same account.
Right. And I even said that to my stepdad, right? 20, 30 years ago, I said that to my stepdad. We were visiting my cousin and at their sailboat, and my stepdad at the time was like, he loved boats. He loves this. He loves boats. Didn't have one at the time. And you could just see how much he meant to him. And I said, between the two of you, you've got 5 kids who are all fine. If you're not going to do this now, we're running out of years here. Don't you think we would rather come visit you on your boat than wait 30 years to get a couple more bucks.
Yeah.
People don't want
So you
to
can
receive
overgive.
Inappropriately.
And if you have friends that you go out with, and occasionally one of you buys, occasionally the other buys, if one of them insists on buying all the time, very soon you would stop accepting invitations because it just feels
wrong.
Yeah. And so you owe it to the relationship to give the other person a chance to provide some mutuality. I don't believe in scorekeeping, but create some mutuality. And I have made up things that people could do for me to make it even. Right?
It's like search and rescue dogs. If they don't find live people, you got to go hide in the rubble so they feel better about themselves.
Right? Somebody wasted a car dealer, and that's relevant to the story, wasted 12 hours of my life one time. The backstory's not important. And he kept apologizing when I finally got in touch with him later that day. And he said, I'm sorry. I said, I'll accept the apology on 2 conditions. And he said, what's that? And I said, number one, that you stop apologizing. You don't have a time machine. So why are we talking about 10 a.m.? You can't fix it. You apologize. I accept it. By the way, the phrase is never, it's okay. The phrase is, I accept your apology, because it's not okay. And he said, all right, fair enough. What's the second condition? I said, by the time I come back here, I'm probably going to need an oil change. Oh, I can do that. I'll even set up with the service manager so you don't have to wait. Just let me know what day you're coming back and I'll put you on the books and we'll take care of that. And I left and my coworkers, you're so smart. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, you got an oil change out of that. I said, out of 12 hours of my life, you think it's a fair deal?
I overpaid for that oil change.
I said, I told Corey, all I need is an oil change for Corey's benefit, for the benefit of the relationship. It is a lie that makes us even. But it is true that there are no time machines.
Everybody feels better now.
Correct. And if he thought it through, he'd realize it doesn't make us even. But we can both pretend that it made us even, which is critical for the relationship. Because if Corey in the back of his mind remembers, I let Daniel down, after a while, my emails are going to ping a negative feeling in his gut, and he's not going to read them. And my phone calls are not going to get returned because it pings a negative feeling in his gut, and he doesn't know why, but he's going to pull away from me because, and might never even know why, because all he remembers is we weren't even. And he believes we're even now. And so I did this in service to my relationship to Corey and his peace of mind, not because I needed a change. I ended up trading it out for windshield wipers. What's that? I'm like, no way.
And this brings up a thought for me, because one of the things that I warn some of my clients about, and I've seen this happen so many times, is be careful who you let hook their cart to your horse. And I think it's not exactly networking that I'm talking about, but it is relationship.
Same concept.
It's the same concept. And I've had situations where, and I don't think people do this intentionally maliciously, by the way. I think what happens in small business world is you can get excited when you see an opportunity for success and to partner with someone who's braver than you. And not in even any consciously malicious way, but you want to be part of something. And I've watched this happen over and over again, where there's been like a rising star, someone who's really puts the work in, and somebody else sees an opportunity to contribute, but they're not at a reciprocal level. They're not at a match. They're not at a mutual, the opportunity almost doesn't even exist. And then the person who thought person A was going to take them with them actually gets mad when it doesn't happen.
And this is a much broader psychological context, but I'm trying to remember exactly who I was coaching on this the other day. But I said, if we want something long enough, we will convince ourselves that we need it. And if we need it long enough, we will convince ourselves that we deserve it.
Oh, that way. Okay, that is huge. If we want something long enough, we'll convince ourselves we need it. And if we convince ourselves we need it, we'll convince ourselves we deserve it.
Deserve it. And then we get angry when it doesn't appear, right? All of the upset in the world.
Entitlement, right? It's, I've been working so hard. How come it's for everyone, but I didn't get it yet?
But you're working hard at the wrong thing, right? Yeah, this relates to the pre-show conversation that we had. But there are people that started with me at the same company I did, which is a great reputation as a proving ground, setting people up for success, that started 15 years after I did, that have moved on. They've surpassed me. Now, what's interesting is I'm catching up. And I don't mean in terms of dollar value or revenue, but I'm now moving back to these people and going, I know you mentored me a long time ago, right? But I'm in a position to provide some value to you just because I've gone in a different direction, and very much a peer thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then it goes back to some of our pre-show conversation, which just doesn't bear repeating. It's not that it can't be repeated, but it doesn't bear repeating here. But yeah, and you're correct. So yes, is there a role in the world for you providing some degree of support to someone else? Yes. Should you be careful about who you let hitch their wagon to your star? Absolutely. Meaning I will always be willing to show people how to do the work. But if you do not allow them to do the work, then they don't experience the success. And I saw this in one of my particular careers. You would bring somebody on to help. I need you to help me with my projects. And you get a small percentage, but I need you to help with the project. But you need to go find some of your own projects. They would trail me around forever and would never go kill their own deals for 70% of the kill. They would only, I very quickly taught them that you don't have the skill set or you don't need to work. And they would rather wait for me to close another deal and get 30% of it than to go out and close their own deal and get 70 or 100%. And I'm like, this is mind-boggling to me.
Well, and it's true, to me, and I again, lead with empathy. I get it. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But maybe this isn't for you. There's other opportunities. Yes.
But is it our fault because we fed them right? It's the old story of if you try to open up the cocoon for the butterfly to get out, you destroy its ability to prove itself with the muscle tone that it needs. Right. And that's an important part of this. Anyway, that we got past connection pretty fast, but it does involve a degree of mutuality in giving people opportunity to serve through. Okay. Oh, I said I was going to reveal my strategy right here. Okay. I hold a lot of what I call quick connects or first paired interviews. The first time you and I meet, I call it quick connect. It's a paired interview. It's the two of us. And I will ask people, who do you serve? What do you do? Who do you serve? What's a good key referral partner look like for you? And usually I end up taking quite a number of notes of resources, introductions, prospects, potential prospects, potential key referral partners for them. And I used to go to my computer and be like, all right, let me create these for you. And they're like, all right, because they've asked me the same questions, right? And I'll shoot some stuff back. And they don't. I don't think it's because their heart is in the wrong place, right? It's because there's just no urgency, right? There's no, I get it. They're thinking about their business, not mine. Totally understand. So what I'm going to now, and I'm going to be really upfront, if anybody watches this, by the way, I'm fine with it because I don't mind going on record, because I'm going to say, I'm going to put about 30 to 45 minutes into copying my handwritten notes into a database, doing some searches and some looking around for who I might want to introduce you to, thinking about what resources might be appropriate for you. And then I'm going to get back with you and offer you these resources and introductions. And I want you to tell me which ones you want, which ones you don't, and how to queue them up, because you might not want to be introduced the same way to everybody.
Right.
Now you've got my profile of who I'm looking for, right? So I'm going to send you my calendar link. And whenever you're ready to support me, I don't want to phrase it that way. Whenever you're ready, I'll just leave it at that. Put yourself on my calendar. I'll have my notes, and you and I will both share introductions in real time and coach each other on the best way to do that. And I suspect that a vast majority of them will do that.
I think people really do want to do this. I think a lot of people don't really.
Now, whether it turns into a regular thing with that many people remains to be seen. We might not be in a position to do much past one pass through the database, but I believe most people will. I really do. And those that don't, goes back to what you said, right? You can only show up so often in a capacity, right? And it's accurate that I'm investing that much time. People think I just sat there for the 20-minute Zoom and we're done. No, I'm putting time and energy into entering the notes, making them searchable, because you may be who someone else is looking for, right? Doing my control F to find the keywords that you need to find the people that we're looking for. And sometimes I know them off the top of my head, which is why I take notes in real time. But the fact is, I put time into building that database, right? So it does represent a significant time effort on my part. And if you're not going to invest some time, it's okay. And I may send you some resources, but until we're at a point where you're willing to show up. Now, if you emailed me and said, Dan, all I've got is 2, but you said you had some stuff for me, and I want to be honest, all I've got is 2, I'll still book that for you. And I'm not keeping score, but it goes back to, do you do the work for them? Meaning, I believe that most people will book that. They'll experience the effort of putting themselves on my calendar and then going, I better be thinking about Daniel Andrews for the next couple of weeks. And then they show up, and now they know what it's like. I've gone to the gym and I've worked out for a minute, and now I know what it feels like. And do I want to keep showing up at Daniel Andrews' gym and keep working out like this, or is this not for me? But I believe that it's in service, not to get rid of of people who low energy or won't reciprocate. It's to give them the chance to learn what it looks like to create mutuality and then discover if they enjoy it, number one, and number two, if he and I are well suited to continue.
Well, and what I really love about this, and I think everyone says that they network, everyone goes to networking events, and I think the majority of people walk in a door, and that's the extent of what they know to do.
That's correct.
And they just don't know, and they just don't
know. Yes.
And somebody at the chamber has them convinced that if you give a good 30-second introduction, you become a millionaire. So if people want to continue this conversation and realize, like really realize that there's so much more they can be creating with the time that they're spending creating these relationships. And we know we can't Google you because you've already told us that.
I can tell you how to find me, but a Google search won't do it.
It won't help you. So please share what is the best way to find you.
Sure. If you're a man or woman of action, right, I'm going to give you my phone number, 803-361-6825. 803-361-6825. Send me your name so I know who I'm talking to. Heard you on Air Marcus podcast. And make some reference to the word ninja network building skills, right?
Love it.
If you're the slow roller and you just want to check it out and suss it out and blah, 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 I'm going to give you the name of my website. You can go there. You can from there figure out how to get to my LinkedIn URL. I'll make it tricky. You can there figure out how to get on my calendar. It's not as easy as you want it to be because I'd rather you text me because that tells me you're a man or woman of action, right? But on my LinkedIn profile, scroll down to the recommendations, scroll down to the end because there's a long list and look for the word ninja and see what people had to say about ninja network building skills. Just Control F for the word ninja. And you'll know if you want to get in touch with me or not. But anyway, my website is my full name, DanielPatrickAndrews.com. And you can't even Google that because Daniel Patrick Andrews is the name of a bombastic Australian parliamentarian, former premier of the Territory of Victoria. And Google Daniel Patrick Andrews will produce about 2 million Google searches. So you don't want to Google.
Do that. I'm going to have to find you the old school way.
Daniel Patrick Andrews, that's on the end.com. That's how you can. Or 803-361-6825. Blow up my phone. It's fine with me.
Awesome. Thank you for hanging out with me today and going deep on this topic because it's so important. I agree with you. There's some of us who kind of move naturally through the world this way. And there's so many people who really want to, and they just don't know how, but there is instruction.
They want to, and they don't know how. And the last thing I'll share is a secret for whoever listeners stuck around to the end. Introverts have the advantage.
Oh my God. So true. So true.
Introverts have the advantage because I'm not going to teach you how to network. I think we should all stop networking immediately. I'm going to teach you how to build a few quality relationships.
So true.
That make all the difference.
The introverts are so much better at it.
So well suited for
so much better at it.
But don't tell the extroverts because then they won't pay for the coaching. They're just harder to convince that they need fewer, not more.
Absolutely.
But the introverts already know they need fewer, not more. The output of working with me, by the way, if anybody's curious, 72 to 120, and yes, those numbers are very specific for a reason, 72 to 120 warm introductions to ideal clients per year on less than 5 hours a month. Less than 5 hours a month.
You can do it.
If you're not currently getting it, you should probably consider getting in touch with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I truly enjoy bringing these stories of success and inspiration to you. Please join us in our mission to empower entrepreneurs to be in charge of their businesses and in charge of their lives by sharing this with anyone you know who would benefit from our tactical and motivating advice, leaving us a review, and letting us know if there are any particular topics you would really appreciate hearing about. See you next time.